Allow me to share a screen right now, and so that would allow us to be faster in doing things. So I'm going to try and make sense of all the information that we do. And I'd like to thank the Penang Christian Center and Pastor Isaac for inviting me. There are two parts of this session in view of the questions that were given to me and collected. The first part is the common questions, and the second part talks about personal questions that people have submitted. Okay. I want to say that in the very beginning that our primary problem in Malaysia, and many countries for that matter in the world, is there's a trust deficit nowadays. We don't trust the government, we don't trust our health authorities as we used to in the past. But I want to say there's a second trust element, and that's our trust in God. And in this time, I believe that while we want to look at the facts, we also want to listen to what God is saying to us. We have a huge problem, which is the data. Constantly more and more coming in, both the local information that we need for Malaysia plus the international data, and can be confusing. Of course, a lot of fake news that I see circulating all over the place. So this also, muddies the water. As promised, as Pastor Isaac said, I'm going to give you an honest and frank opinion. If I don't know, I'm going to say so, and if I'm worried about something, I will tell you. Okay, but as I said, listen to God and discern what He is saying, and that's critical for us. And look at the big picture. While we have personal concerns, we must also look at the needs of the country and the needs of the world. I must say that as my background as a pediatrician, I've been responsible for bringing vaccines into the country, especially measles, mumps, rubella, MMR, and HIP, Haemophilus influenza B, and some of your children may have benefited from that work. But having said that, I'm not pro any vaccine. The vaccine has to be good and safe before we use it. I'm going to show some slides. I'm going to show many of them. They're going to look a bit busy. Some of them are there for me to remember what to say. I'm old, I'm past 60, and I need this kind of reminders. So don't worry about the busyness of slide. Focus on the key message that we're going to give each of them. So let's jump in straight away. And here's the first concern. Since many people recover from the COVID infection and the vaccine doesn't guarantee that we will not be infected, should we take the vaccine or not? Is there a need for the vaccination? And what about alternatives besides vaccination? And what about this thing that called long COVID? Is it a real concern for us? So I like to emphasize this is our data right now. Many of us look at day-to-day numbers. The rest of us look at long-term numbers. And it took us 1 year to reach 100,000 reported cases in the country, but it only took 1 month to get another 100,000. That was January. Another 1 month in February, another 100,000. And so far in March, we've reached about 48,000 in March. Slow down a little bit. And, so we've rapidly gone up. And this is just one of our waves. It's expected that COVID will come in many different waves, and the next wave could be bigger. I always look at what science thinks, and the UK models for Malaysia suggest that for every one that we pick up, we miss 4. So right now, I would estimate about 1 million Malaysians have had COVID. These are the ones we know about, and many more who had COVID and didn't know about it. So the problem is big, okay? And of course, with the rising numbers, the deaths go up, although the death rate, as you can see at the bottom here, has remained fairly small, okay? Despite that low death rate overall, you must remember that the majority of people who die are above 50, and their mortality is not 0.4%. Their mortality depends on age. I'm in this age, upper end of this age bracket. I'm 63 now. And, my death rate is higher. People who are in this bracket, 75, 1 in 10 are going to die if they get COVID. So some of the people listening in are older. Some have older parents or grandparents, and those are the ones at higher risk. Not to mention also those who have got diabetes, hypertension, other heart disease. Okay. Then there's this thing called long COVID. And for doctors, although that's worries, but that's not the main thing that worries us. Long COVID worries us. There's a name for it, but long COVID is what most people use. And basically what happens in long COVID is that some people don't recover after COVID-19. And the people who get long COVID are not those who necessarily get severe COVID-19 infection. It could be even people who get mild COVID infections. And this, what happens to them is they get things like what's called brain fog. They can't think like they could before. We have people who can't even walk across the room because their lungs are damaged. A lot of people struggle going back to work. They have anxiety and depression. Some get fatigue all the time. No one knows how common this is. It's estimated between 10 and 30%. I would say a conservative estimate is 10%. And many people's symptoms last for longer than 12 weeks, even months. Okay, so your heart, your lung, your brain and some other organs get long-term damage. I've seen some of the scans from our country of young people, who are under 40 with mild COVID who get permanent lung scarring and damage from this. So this is the one that bothers us more than the deaths. And this data is growing. Not enough talked about this in Malaysia, but talked extensively in the West about this. So why vaccinate? My arguments are we've got a lot of COVID going around and another huge spike. Most of us expecting a fourth wave now with the kind of relaxation that we see with more people. Elderly and people with a lot of illnesses are more likely to die. There's a problem of long COVID for any one of us, including younger individuals. And of course, once vaccination starts in full-fledged, you're already starting to hear this. Your life may be restricted without a vaccine. You may not be able to do the same things as other individuals. Finally, we want to support the community. I think we're in this together, not as an individual. So if you vaccinate, then you protect the person who cannot be vaccinated. And there are quite a percentage, maybe 1% of our population who can't be vaccinated. And of course, don't forget children as well, a much larger group there. Also, if you vaccinate, you also protect those who are vaccinated because, we reduce the risk of mutations. Some don't respond to vaccination and you help them as well. Okay. What about other options? And these are the ones that largely talked about, hydroxychloroquine, you can dismiss. Ivermectin is a lot talked about, especially in fake news. Currently, the evidence is insufficient for its use. It's definitely being trialed. A lot of trials are being done for ill patients, but I'm talking about using it every day to prevent getting COVID. That data is just not there at the present moment. These two drugs, these antiviral and steroids, are used for very ill patients, but you can't take them to prevent you from getting COVID. Zinc, vitamin C, not enough data, so you just have to wait for data if there's any. Vitamin D is the only one that you perhaps should look at. There is some good data suggesting that if you boost your vitamin D, you reduce the severe COVID you might get and might get less likely to get COVID. It's still not recommended internationally. People are still looking for more data, but much of their work is going on for ill patients in hospital. Not that enough data for well people like us. So many doctors, other individuals who look at the existing evidence have considered supplementing themselves with vitamin D. Finally, of course, cut down your risk, and weight is one risk that you can actually influence right now. What works is this: mask, ventilation, keep your distance, and vaccines. Notice that I've made hand sanitations and surface sanitation smaller because that's less important right now. Still being emphasized, and we should not forget it, but less important. Must remember that ventilation is critical indoors. 1 to 2 meters indoors is meaningless. You need to really ventilate rooms, and I worry about church meetings and offices and so on. And most people are asymptomatic, so you don't know when you get infected. So masks, I think what bothers me the most, a lot of people wear the surgical mask, but they don't recognize they don't actually work as well as we like them to because their fit is not good. The fit is critical. You can notice a lot of these leaders who come from good health services wear cloth masks. Some people have gone to wear double cloth masks, but it's actually the fit of the mask that's most important. If you follow WHO guidelines, a good cloth mask, 3-layered, works very well. The fit is good. This is what I look like. I was using surgical masks with shields, and I moved away to using a cloth mask, which is nano woven from South Korea. Very, very, very good fit. And I still keep a shield. Here's my wife with the same nano weave thing, wearing a shield. And when we cycle, we also wear some safety goggles. We were out cycling today like this because we pass by a lot of joggers and we want to minimize our risk. So the fit of your mask is very important. Improve the fit of your mask. This one has got a lot of gaps at the side that need to be improved. There are ways to improve your surgical mask as well. So I want to say, think of the asymptomatic people. While our numbers are coming right down now, our infectivity hasn't really come down. In fact, it's gone up a little bit. So we are concerned about that. That's why we say a fourth wave is probably coming. The principles I live by is that everybody around me is positive, that I am possibly positive. I don't want to give this to other people, and that I don't want my older brother or sister, a younger person, to actually get infected. And so I protect myself from others, and I protect others from me. I lived in that kind of principles. The second big bunch of questions are about vaccines, which is better, Pfizer or Sinovac? How long will the immunity last? And what are the difference between the vaccines? There are 4 major kinds of vaccines produced. Uh, the one that we are used to is something called is whole cell vaccine, the third one here, that where we take a virus or a bacteria, we make it half dead or kill it, and then we introduce it to the body. And that is the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, the chickenpox vaccine, the polio vaccines, all these use this kind of technology. Okay. Uh, People also use viral vector vaccines. And what are viral vector vaccines? They take some of the genetic material of the virus and they put it inside a harmless virus. And what has been used so far? So far, Ebola has done this. And some of the companies have used this mechanism to work. And I'll show some examples in a moment. And the RNA one is the one that bothers most people. This is a new technology, it's not being used more. Here, we actually take a little bit of the genetic material, the messenger RNA, the one that sends a message to our cells. We put it inside a lipid capsule, and then we introduce it to the body to stimulate the cell to produce. Now, all these are not just producing antibodies. They must also stimulate the other parts, cellular immunity is called, especially what is called our T cells, because that are also very important to fight this virus. Okay. So here's a busy slide showing all the key vaccines, and I'm going to go through them with you, especially the ones that we are going to purchase. Okay, so we're going to purchase Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Sinovac, CanSino Bino, and Sputnik 5. Of these, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and Sinovac already have received approval for use in our country by the Ministry of Health Regulatory Drug Authority. Okay, these two have not yet. And what's available in the country? The Pfizer already available in the country and in use actively. The Sinovac also available in the country and started to be used. And the CanSino Bino is just coming in right now. AstraZeneca will come in June, and Sputnik, we're still waiting to see when that will come to us. So let's compare these key 5 vaccines because it's the ones that are going to be available to us. Okay, so Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Sinovac, CanSino Bino, and Sputnik V.
It's recording,
right? So in terms of the way these vaccines are developed, the Pfizer one is the mRNA vaccine that lots of people have concern about. The AstraZeneca, the CanSino Bino, and the Sputnik from Russia are all virus vector. The AstraZeneca used a chimpanzee cold virus. The others use adenovirus, and the Sputnik V actually use 2 different adenovirus. So in a sense, the Russian vaccine actually is 2 different vaccines being given to you, one for the first dose, one for second dose. They hope by doing that, improve your immunity. And finally, the Sinovac is the inactivated virus, the type where we kill the virus and present it to you. Okay, so these are the 5 kinds of technology that's 4 kinds of technology that's being used right now. Okay, what about doses? Everyone requires second dose, but CanSino Bino says 1 dose. I'll say a bit more about this 1 dose later. Okay, and most of them have a schedule about 2 to 3 weeks apart. Although the data is very clear, if you wait a bit longer, the immunity is better. So even Sinovac, some people are suggesting that 4 weeks is better than 2 weeks. But right now we are following these 2-3 week schedules. In terms of storage, the Sputnik V and the Pfizer are the ones that are harder to store. They require a colder temperature. The Pfizer mRNA, especially because of the lipid capsule that they have, is harder to keep. But notice that you can keep them for about a month or 2 months at your fridge temperature. The rest all can be kept at your room, at your refrigerator temperature of 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. How about how good they are? People look at this data, which comes from the studies, the efficacy data. Okay, but we are not looking at that data most time as doctors. We look at this kind of data. There are different grades in terms of what the vaccine can do. Prevent infection completely, or more important for us, prevent long COVID, prevent severe symptoms, prevent death. That is our benchmark. If you can do this, we think it's successful. There's some fake news circulating that this means that not a vaccine. That's not true. For example, if you take the BCG vaccine, which most of you had been around for a very long time, it doesn't prevent TB in the lungs. It prevents the BCG from infecting your brain and other organs, and that's the basic benefit. And for me as a pediatrician, the number of lives have been saved just from that is phenomenal. Okay, so depends where you put your benchmark. So if you look at that benchmark, most of them are almost 100%. So let's look at this kind of data. Look at the red bar. The red bar is the one we're looking at in terms of, their efficacy to prevent severe disease, and almost all of them are 90 to 100%. Now, why have I put this guys in shaded area, the CanSino Bino and Sinovac? Because we have yet to see what is called the phase 3 published data. Most of us want to see the full data set. published by the company. And these two companies have yet to publish the data. They release some data in the press and to the media, but not to the scientific community in the world. Ultimately, of course, all this is in the lab and in control studies, and we want to see what happens in the real world experience. Okay. So who's using what? Many countries are using Pfizer or AstraZeneca. Some countries are using Sinovac and Sputnik. And these are the list of countries that have approved Sinovac right now. So let me talk a bit about Sinovac because there's some different opinions about it. Notice that even in Malaysia, we have expressed concern about people above 60 using Sinovac. Why is this? Because the data is not there. Even from the data they released to the media from these companies, the trial data for above 60 is not sufficient. Okay, you can notice that Singapore has yet, despite having received the vaccine, Sinovac, have yet to approve this vaccine for use in the country. So I believe that we need more data for Sinovac, especially for those above 60. Right? How long do antibodies last? Oh, this is something that cannot be answered as yet. The available data says 4 to 6 months. Most people say it will last longer than 6 months, but those are our opinions, and we have to continue watching people who have received the vaccine in the trials and those who are receiving the vaccine now and follow them up before we can answer this question. But very few vaccines in the world ever last only 6 months. Most of them last a couple of years. So I expect that for this vaccine as well. Okay. Of course, world of vaccines, we know that they will reduce severe illness and death, but people are interested to reduce transmission, and many people are worried about SOPs. I know this question is being asked later, but I'd like to address it now. This is the best data that's come out. A couple of studies have come out recently showing that Pfizer and Moderna vaccines in the US reduce your infection risk between 80 to 90%, 80 for one dose, 90 for two doses. So that's fantastic. And these are studies done in healthcare professionals, which are at high risk of getting the infection. So it looks like in the real world, these vaccines will not just reduce severity, but reduce the risk of you getting infected. And these are people who are being tested every week. So their reliability of knowing they're infected is much better. Okay, but what about SOPs after the vaccine? Many people hoping that after this we can go back to life as before. No, I don't think that's true. Even the US, somebody said that, somebody very high up said that, but then everybody backtracked. You can't simply go back to travel freely. You can't stop your SOPs and stop wearing masks. Why is that so? Because, not everybody is vaccinated yet. In Malaysia, it's very small. And not everybody who are vaccinated will respond. A minority will not respond. We want to protect them. Okay. Some who develop immunity can still become infected, and we're worried about this issue of mutations or variants, and we don't know what that's going to happen with just yet with this vaccine. And finally, we don't know how long the immunity is going to last. So these are some of the questions that are not fully answered yet. Definitely things are going to be more relaxed, but that depends on what volume of our community we can vaccinate. Now coming to the one that bothers people the most. What bothers people most is how effective are the vaccines, and secondly, how safe are they? What happens to people with pre-existing allergies? What are the side effects of these vaccines? Let me cover this in some depth. Okay, these are the ones that you should consider: the common mild side effects, the allergic and the rare and the serious side effects. And then, of course, there's the issue of what's going to happen to us long-term with newer vaccines like the mRNA vaccines. But there's also this issue of timeline-related side effects and fake news. And let me discuss each of these. Let's talk about the common ones first. I want to say that 600 million doses of different vaccines have been given worldwide, and it's not easy now to hide anything from anyone. Major problems are going to show up. So look at this big picture as we think about these. So let's look at common and allergic rare. Almost all of us are going to get some side effects. You could get an injection, so definitely you could get some pain and in your arm. Some people will get a bit of a headache or dizziness. And for my doctor colleagues who have got the vaccine, quite a few of them have sharing their side effects. Most of them may get some fever and some tiredness. If you look at the US, South Korea, and Malaysia has just released a bit of data yesterday in the media. The number of people who report mild infections is not big because most people know those are the infections, the side effects they're going to get. So they don't really report those side effects very much, okay? And so you can see the majority who report, more than 99% are mild. But there are some people who report severe infections. In Malaysia right now, that's 0.5% of those who reported side effects. But you must remember that very few reported side effects. So there are some people who get severe side effects. Notice also from the data which is coming out, females have a higher risk of getting severe side effects. We think this is because women are more prone to getting autoimmune diseases, diseases which attack your own body. So the vaccines definitely seem to behave differently in women than men. Okay. So if you look at the severe side effects, we don't have the full list for Malaysia, but the one that worries people is anaphylaxis, a severe allergic reaction, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. That's seen both in the UK and the South Korea. But some people are also worried about deaths happening after vaccination. I'll cover both of these. I like countries which report all the adverse events, and we trust data like that. This builds trust in us. I like the Scandinavian countries, Norway, for example, that publishes weekly all their adverse effects for the public to look at. South Korea also does that weekly, which is very good. So let's come to the two big ones. One is the death, one is the allergies. Let's look at allergies first. And of course, the Ministry of Health has got some guidance for this as well. I'm going to look at these four big data sets which publish data regularly. UK also publish data weekly and talk about allergies. And this is a summary of the allergies. Don't worry about all the numbers, but notice that this cover Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca vaccines, not the other vaccines, because we don't have the data for them. And you can see these are the severe allergic reactions per 100,000. That means for every 100,000 people in the US, about 1 to 2 of them develop a severe anaphylactic reaction. What does this mean? They became very unwell. There may be some swelling in their face. There's some breathing difficulty. The blood pressure may drop. They require medical care. Many of them will be admitted. But when you come down here, look in Korea, you notice that the rates are much higher. It means it's about 10 per 100,000. And we expect that for Malaysia, this is the kind of rates that may happen to us as well. We don't know why this is happening. In Singapore, the rates weren't very high, but they have not released data since 1st February. And the data is very small. So I like to say that there's a difference in the anaphylaxis rate between South Korea and the Europeans and the Americans. And this may be something that applies to Malaysia. So this is the biggest risk in getting the vaccine. So far, not a single person in the world has died from this. Everybody's got treated, which is why they will keep you 15 to 30 minutes after the vaccination, just to keep an eye on you. This is going to happen very quickly, within a couple of minutes, within 15 minutes of you getting your jab. Okay, women have a higher risk, and those who have previous allergies have a higher risk. Okay, I'll talk more. I would love to see what Sinovac does regarding this, and also the other China vaccines, and also Sputnik V, but I don't have the data to share with you because it's not available yet. Okay. Does it happen with other vaccines? Sure. All vaccines have anaphylaxis risk, but not as high as the ones we are quoting right now. Okay. So what does Ministry of Health says about this? What to do with your prior allergies, let me discuss what allergies means for all of us. And I've divided them into 3 groups. The bottom group here, number 6, is the one that many of you have. People will ask about what happens if I get some urticaria, which is a bit of swelling in your skin, some eczema, you're itchy all the time, your allergic rhinitis, your nose is temperature or sensitive to things. You get dermatitis, you got food allergies or insect allergies, example, bee stings. These kind of people, go ahead with your vaccination. Okay, there's a very large proportion. Please tell the doctor when you come for vaccination that you have these risks, okay, and they will keep a sharper eye on you. Then there's a second group of us. This I would consider moderate problem. People with very severe asthma, not the mild asthma, the severe asthma, and people who have drug allergies, which are not a single drug, but multiple drug allergies. But these drug allergies don't have swelling. Basically, you have skin rashes and stuff like that. These are people with higher risk than the lower category, but not very severe. And these people should go ahead with their vaccination, but must tell the doctor. They'll probably be vaccinated in the clinic, and people keep an eye. The group that you're worried about is the one up here. Okay, sorry. These are the ones with severe reactions. These are people who develop a severe reaction to a previous vaccine, people who develop a lot of swelling, especially in the face after a vaccine or due to something else, maybe something they ate, and people who develop a real anaphylaxis that I talked about. That means swelling, breathing difficulty, usually with a wheeze, your blood pressure drops, some even get in comatose. Now, these are the people who should take special precautions. Different countries have given different guidelines. And let me suggest to you what we should do and what Malaysian government will do with you. And it's only applying to this group. Huh? The other group, go ahead with the vaccination, but tell people. So for that group, one option is not to get your vaccination because you're worried. But when more and more people get vaccinated, your life is going to be restricted, and you may be also high risk of dying from COVID. So that's not a good option. So consider number two, which is what Ministry of Health is suggesting to us as well. Come, let people know, get vaccinated in hospital where there's better support for you, where people have adrenaline and antihistamines to treat you. Now, I must tell you that I am in the category number 2, and I'm also got category number 4, and I've also got some asthma and other problems, number 6. So actually, I'm a high-risk individual. I have signed up in my Sejahtera for the vaccination, but I expected I will ask to be vaccinated in hospital. So please ask for that if you're in the category 1, 2, 3. They can't offer it for everybody because there's too many people in category 6 down there. Okay. The third option for you is to delay your vaccination, wait for more data to come out, and see which vaccine is the least allergic and use that. But as you and I know, we don't have a choice for vaccine. I hope that Ministry of Health will do this to us, that those with allergies, as more data comes out, and we find that the vaccine is the one with the least allergies, this will be preferentially given to people with allergies. This is not available at the present moment. Okay. What about long-term side effects? Many people are worried about this. As I said, 600 million people vaccinated in the last 3 months. Tens of thousands of people who've been vaccinated in the clinical trials now have gone past 6, quite of them, some of them 9 months, and we know the side effects that have happened to these individuals. Okay, so most side effects appear within a month, usually by 6 to 8 weeks, and we have not seen any significant long-term side effects appearing, okay, all short-term. What about this one? This one that bothers a lot of people, timeline related. And of course, fake news comes from these. And, I want to tell you that, people who report these are the ones who get bad press, sadly. The people who don't report are the ones that bother me. So here's Norway, they reported it, and 23 people died after the Pfizer dose. And so they got bad press. Hong Kong also getting some bad press. South Korea also getting bad press because they're reporting their data. Okay, we've had a little bit. We've had a nurse and a fireman who's died after vaccination, and Ministry of Health assured them they've been investigated and they're not related to the vaccine. So this was the reason some time ago in February, a couple of us, I got some colleagues together and we wrote an article talking that this is going to happen. Some people are going to die. Why? Because people die all the time, especially if you're older. They die of heart attacks, they die of, strokes, they die of pneumonias. And we know that this is the number of deaths you can expect. For every 100,000 older people past 65, you can expect about 75 deaths per week for this group, just per week for these individuals. So what I'm basically saying is that before vaccination, every week, about 75 people in that age group are going to die. For every 100,000, if you multiply that by the whole of Malaysia in that age group, it's a lot more. Okay, so after the COVID vaccination, these deaths are still going to happen. But the problem comes when this happens. This is an 82-year-old man who's got some hypertension. He gets a stroke and he dies 5 days later. That is something that we expect to see as medical doctors. We see that all the time. But now let's assume he had the vaccination 2 days before that, and then he developed a stroke and died. People are going to assume that because he had the vaccination, the stroke killed him. Sorry, I apologize. The vaccination caused a stroke and then that killed him. So, but actually it's a stroke. So how to make this relationship is not easy. These are what I say about timeline-related problems. And this, of course, will be amplified in social media, spread by WhatsApp, and worries a lot of people. And that's what's happening in Hong Kong, what's happening in South Korea, no longer happening in Norway because they share the data so often, people see the safety signals. Okay, so here's what Norway does for people. Here's one of their recent ones, just last week, where they tell you how many of each vaccine people have got and how many deaths occur, how many total adverse events. And the report is much more detailed, how many got this kind of side effect, that kind of side effect, and so on. And the vast majority of the people who die are old people in nursing home, and they die quite quickly. They don't die slowly. I would expect that if the vaccine was causing problem, it would take some time to die, not immediately, because the vaccine has to work first. Antibodies that we produce before you die. You die a couple of days later, I think it's very hard to blame the vaccine. Okay, so in Norway, people continue the vaccination because they know these are not related to the vaccination. Again, you can see in Hong Kong, Sinovac, there are 9 deaths after about almost 300 doses and 1 death after a Pfizer dose. So what we need in our country, in all countries, is rapid data uh, all the time, and this kills rumors. Okay? Having said that, I want to talk about 2 safety signals that you must keep your eye on, which are growing slowly. Huh? One of the safety signal is with AstraZeneca, and that's clotting in your brain after the vaccine. Huh? This is the official statement by the European Medical Agency saying that there may be an association. It's very, very tiny right now, but the vaccine outweighs the risk. Please go ahead. Surprisingly, this risk is not to old people. This risk is to people under 50. That the risk is being seen. So a nurse working in the ICU who was, I think, 40, 50 years old, got this clot and died. So some people have died, some have just got the clot and did not die. Okay, so this safety signal is being seen in the UK, seen in Europe, and seen a little bit elsewhere. US not yet because they haven't used this vaccine. Okay, so what have people responded to doing it? Some countries have continued with the vaccine. Some in Europe have said we won't use in people under 50 or 60, we use for older people. And in Germany, they even said people who are older, who have received the first dose of AstraZeneca, can come back and receive a second dose Pfizer. So people are responding to the safety signals as they go along. But I'd like you to keep an eye. AstraZeneca will come to Malaysia in June, and we should keep an eye on this safety signal to see how big this problem is. Right now, I can tell you it is very tiny. But again, there's the issue of public and personal. If you get this, it personally is devastating. But for the public, we're trying to vaccinate the community to protect everybody. The other safety signals with the Pfizer vaccine also works also with the Moderna vaccine, and your platelets seem to drop in a very, very tiny people. Here's one good publication which looked at it in extent, and they said, it may be possible. Again, maybe people are not sure about these 2 safety signals. Very, very rare, much more rare than a thrombosis, and they can't really differentiate it from the normal happening drop in your platelets. But they continue to use Pfizer and Moderna freely in the US and other countries there as well, despite the safety signal. So I want to say that we need to keep monitoring safety signals and consider the countries I mentioned and the sites I mentioned, which are good sites. For locally, the Ministry of Health does surveillance. They want the public to inform them if they have a side effect, either directly to the facility you're vaccinated through the My Sejahtera app or directly onto the Drug Control Authority's website where you can report this. And they have a special committee looking at this, and I hope that they will make this available to all of us more frequently. Okay. They've also put up a fund for people who might develop an adverse event after the vaccination. I think this is just to try and assure the public that the vaccines are safe. Okay. So let me put the big picture summary for you from the adverse event in case I've worried you. These are the people per 100,000 Malaysians per year. These are the people who are past 65 who are going to die per year, 100,000. These are the people who are aged 50 to 68 who, if they get infected by COVID, are going to die. That's a lot of people. Okay, I purposely use younger people here in case you think I only think about old people. And here are the people who, of every 100,000 who get, if they get infected by COVID, it's going to get long COVID, and that is a frightening thing. Imagine not being able to go back to work for months, not being able to walk across your room, might have permanent lung or brain damage. Here are the people who might die from driving a car or motorbike every year for every 100,000. And this is the anaphylactic risk with no death so far. So it's actually quite small compared to many other risks. So think there. I have not put down the thrombosis risk and the ITP risk that I shared just now because they're far smaller than the anaphylaxis risk. So again, trying to say that in a graphic diagram for you, these are deaths due to COVID. This is all of Malaysia. If we get infected, this is a number who will die. This is a number who will get long COVID. And these are the ones who have a severe side effect to the vaccine. And that dot is far too big. I can't shrink it any smaller. You won't be able to see it on the screen. Don't forget also, some people will die because we've become so busy with COVID. Hospitals, have become messy, not able to treat everybody. Some people have died because of other health issues. And also some people have committed suicide because of the damage of COVID to their lives. And this is the huge damage. the impact on our lives, our jobs, our anxiety, and our future, especially to children and others. So think of the big picture in terms of vaccination. These are the small picture and the incidents that worry us. I worry about all these bigger things as well. Coming on to other questions here. The difference between single and double dose, you know, can we fight mutations with the current vaccines? Will we achieve herd immunity, uh, with this? And these are some of the key questions that we must ask and keep thinking. Okay, are two doses better than one? Should we delay our second dose? What happens if I miss my second dose? Mix and match vaccine. Now, mix and match vaccines are being tested, and you can see Germany has come out with a statement that those are the first AstraZeneca and are young, if they are worried, go ahead and get a Pfizer for the second dose. So people will come up with this, but still waiting for data. If you miss a second dose, the Deputy Health Ministers come out with a clear statement, please come back within 40 days and we'll give you a dose. I think even past 40 days, they will give you your second dose. Okay. Should we delay a second dose? There are mixed opinions about this. Some people praise UK's response to have delayed a second dose. They vaccinated more than 50% of the adult population with one dose. That's remarkable in such a short time. And some people in the US said we should do that as well. But there's different opinion. Some people, let's get our immunity up and running. I just saw a paper just published yesterday saying that perhaps that's the way to fight mutations, by giving a single dose. So I think the jury is still out. People are not sure about this yet. And I suspect it'll be clearer in the next 1 or 2 months. And are single dose better than double dose vaccine? Let me show you this from CanScience Bio, which we are buying, and their own public statement from their own company saying that a single shot may not be that good. Maybe a second shot is better. So notice that these are coming from a single dose vaccine. Even the J&J, which is a single dose vaccine, even that one doesn't produce the same volume of immunity that two dose one. So don't think that a single dose is better. Of course, we like a single dose, less side effects, less pain, but we want a single dose, especially for people in rural communities or people who are more mobile, who have difficulty coming back for a second dose. We will get the CanScience Bio. Right now, it's already starting, but the bulk will come in June to August. So perhaps we may have to rethink CanScience Bio, and it might require two doses as well. Okay. What about mutations? All viruses mutate. The influenza is notorious for that, and we need a new virus every year. Okay, and these are the key mutations that we're worried about. I think a fourth Californian one has turned up, but these are the key ones that we are interested in: the UK one, the South African mutation, and the Brazilian mutation. And notice that we have had 9 cases of the South African variant. I want to say here that sometimes viruses mutate in the same way in different countries. They don't necessarily are imported. They may mutate in the same way in your same country. So we obviously have some of these mutations in us, and these mutations are known to spread faster, and some of them have a more severe COVID-19. How do our vaccines I have no data for these 3 vaccines, Sinovac, CanSino, and Sputnik, for the mutations, so I cannot give you any information. But Pfizer and AstraZeneca seem to work for some of them. Again, I believe the next 2 months, even 1 month ago, I couldn't show this. Even a week ago, much of the data wasn't there, but it's appearing very rapidly as people do more and more studies on the ground in countries that are vaccinating large numbers. So it appears that they do protect. But if you look at this, South African, the Pfizer seems to be doing a good job. Again, remember that we're looking not just at antibodies, we're looking at the T cell response, your cellular response. So should we use this vaccine? Some people say, wait for a better vaccine. Maybe the vaccine is useless to use because the mutations will wipe it out. I want to say the current vaccines are useful because they will stop the mutations from spreading. They stop the mutations from developing. Some people have drawn experimental models saying that the super spreader events are going to spread the mutations. If we have a lot of people vaccinated, super spreader events will die and mutations may not spread. Definitely, the vaccines will reduce your severe illness, even I think if you get a mutation from the data that's coming out right now. Okay. Will we need new vaccines? Yeah, I think we will need new vaccines in time. Is it safe to take more vaccines? A concern for adults. Children take 10 vaccines in the first 12 months of their life. So I believe that, if you take a booster or a third or fourth dose vaccines, this will generally be safe. Okay. So a lot of vaccines are in the pipeline for being developed. The good website is going to show you this. Notice that Israel company trying to develop an oral vaccine you can take at home. Can Sino Bio trying to develop a nasal vaccine? So is an Indian startup company. These are all in very preliminary stage. And I believe that within a year from now, we will get a vaccine that's probably more potent and more effective and easier delivery for all of us. What's the government's plan for herd immunity? Why is our registration so low? And why doesn't the government stick to one type of vaccine instead of different types? Let me answer this last question. I'm so glad they don't stick to one type. I wish they bought more types. As more data appears, we may gravitate to one vaccine more than others. And different vaccine gives us the ability to vaccinate different communities differently. For example, the ones with strong cold require very strong cold chain, minus 60 or 70, better leave with urban centers. The one that can be refrigerated easily in a commercial fridge can use in the rural areas. So there are many reasons why we want multiple different vaccines. Okay. How are we doing with our vaccination program and our herd immunity? This is the number of vaccinated people, both first or second dose, over the last month or plus since we've been vaccinated. We seem to be picking up, but we're still moving very slow. I think the main reason for this is supply. We just don't have enough vaccine supply. You must remember the whole world is fighting for the same supply. Some countries haven't even given one dose yet. So we're actually pretty good. And this is the number of people who are, not number of people, number of vaccinations, almost 600,000. But notice the real number is down there. About 500,000 have received one dose and about 200,000 have received a second dose. And of course, about 7.5 million, about 30+% of the people who should get vaccinated have signed up. Okay. If we continue at this rate, this kind of vaccination rate, assuming we don't get new supply, we're going to be very, very slow. We'll get 6 million to get one dose, or more importantly, 3 million, or about 10% of our population to give second dose. I don't expect this to happen. I expect this curve to go up. Okay. If you look at other countries to compare, we are just about doing the same as Australia and South Korea right now. I compare countries, we started the vaccination around the same time. Australia seemed less pressured than us to vaccinate because they don't have very much COVID right now, but South Korea and us performing the same right now. I haven't compared with Singapore because they started much earlier than us. Okay, so we need herd immunity if to get anywhere, and currently we're not getting there unless we ramp up our immunization, which I expect that we will do. And if we have a low vaccination rate, then COVID is just going to spread. The empty circle is not vaccinated. The red circle is infected. The dark circle is the one who is vaccinated. And the vaccinated cannot protect very much because we have a lot of people with infection spreading it. Remember, many are asymptomatic. But once sufficient numbers are vaccinated, then we got something called herd immunity. The majority of us protect the minority who have not been vaccinated yet or cannot be vaccinated. They're too ill, they're in hospital, they're immune compromised, and we don't let the COVID spread. We'll die out with this person here. Okay. So here's my schematic for what is going to happen with COVID, with herd immunity in our country. The people we especially want to target is the above 65 people, who are 7% of our population. Don't forget, we got 10% non-citizens, which we haven't treated very well in the early stages of the pandemic. If they don't come forward, this block is not going to get vaccinated, and a lot of them are our economic migrants who work for us. Almost every makan shop has got them. So we need to entice them to come forward for vaccination. Of course, it's more than 10%, I'm sure. 1% probably cannot get vaccinated adults. About 1 to 2% are pregnant at any one time. 10% may not be keen for vaccination. Again, right now, this is much bigger, but I assume that down the road, this is a number that will happen. And don't forget, 30% of our children are not currently not vaccinated because the vaccine is not indicated for people under 18 at the present moment. So looking at this schematic, we cannot achieve herd immunity even if we vaccinate this blue group. So we will have to push very hard for our non-citizens. We have to push very hard for not keen people. But finally, the solution to get herd immunity is that we vaccinate children. So a lot of studies are being done now on children. Sinovac released recent data saying that it works well in children. Pfizer also released data that it works well in the 2 to 17 age group, which most people are targeting. So to get herd immunity is not just vaccinating the adults who are willing, but we'll have to probably go down to probably school-going children up to about 7 to vaccinate them and bring maybe 15, 20% of these into the pool then we will get about 70% of our population. If we don't reach 70, 75% of population vaccinated, we're not going to get herd immunity at all. Okay. So why aren't people registering? Huh? There are many factors. I believe some are still not aware. When I talk to people, especially migrant workers in coffee shops, and I go to Tapao food, they say, don't know yet, waiting for boss kind of thing. We know some people in Sabah have complained they don't have internet connectivity, and that may be true for some rural communities. Huh? But if you look at our map of vaccination, you can see that the uptake is weakest in some of our rural states, Kedah, Kelantan, Terengganu, and so on. So there could be also a religious component that we're not aware. Some people are concerned, but the majority are number three. There's majority are hesitant. They don't know it works very well. They're worried about mutations. They're worried about the safety of it because of all the disinformation that's going out. Okay, so these are the majority. They're waiting to see. Let other people vaccinate first, then maybe I think about it. Okay, some are worried. If they sign up, then they change their mind. They be victimized. I don't think the government will do this to you, and I would encourage you to sign up. A few are concerned with ethics of the vaccine production, and a minority are anti-vaccine. So the problem, I think, is a trust deficit problem. We don't trust the vaccines. We don't trust the people who produce the vaccines. We don't trust the government delivery of our vaccines. And a lot of this can be overcome with good information. Okay, all right. I like this from the Council of Churches. They came up with a statement saying, participate voluntarily, but they want to recommend that people come forward. And, individual churches and church groups can actually, the leaders are convinced, actually come up with statements like these. Okay. I suspect that this is going to be the carrot and maybe the stick also. Vaccination passports. You can even see our Prime Minister talking about it 2 days ago. He says, maybe if you get your vaccination 2 doses, you are allowed to cross the state. And that may be a major incentive for individuals who want to go and travel and see their families, or travel for work, or travel for other purposes. So this vaccination passport may be the one that pushes those who are vaccinated, hesitant to come forward and get vaccinated. Of course, it will not be this passport alone. We need an international passport. Of course, we need to work out how to fight fake passports, how to deal with different vaccinations. As Pastor Isaac said to me, will US accept my Sinovac vaccine? And so these are issues that we will have to hammer out between countries. And a lot of it will depend on data. If the data shows Sinovac is good at preventing infections in the majority, then other countries will accept that. So people are working towards an international vaccine passport to verify your data and share that so that you can travel. And this may help everyone. How to work against disinformation. The number of videos and articles sent to me, are messy. And so I make it a habit to read good sites. Take responsibility though. I think please always check. You can use Media Bias Fact Check, or you can use Urban Legend and other fact check sites. Don't forward something that looks really, funny or alarmist. Check first. If you can't find any data, maybe ask a doctor colleague of yours and say, what do you think about this? I always look for red flags. What are red flags? People who claim the moon, or the sun. I saw recently somebody said this mask 100% protect you against COVID. That one I know definitely is fake. I won't listen to that kind of person. Not backed by data. Appeal to your emotions. You are a Christian, you must not do this kind of thing. I think that's not enough. Share the data, and then pushy about sharing. You must share this to everyone else before this website goes down. That kind of thing are all red flags to me. But quite often when I check, it comes up under Media Bias Fact Check and said this is an anti-vaccine site or well known to share fake news. But I always keep an open mind. When AstraZeneca came out, I listened. People say no, it's just a coincidental thing. But now more and more data coming out saying it's a rare but recognized side effect. So we listen to divergent views and we sharpen our discernment. Finally, I always listen to God. I spend a lot of time listening to God, and I encourage you to that. God's voice, is very important for us to listen to this. These are some good sites in case you're interested. There's a coronavirus tracker by New York Times. WHO is always a good site to look at. Center for Disease Control US, and finally Up-to-Date Medicine. There are many others. The National Health Service in the US as well. Now, there's concern about the mRNA vaccine in cold temperature. What happens if the cold chain is broken? the reason there's a cold chain, very strong cold chain, all vaccines require cold chain of 2 to 8, but some of these vaccines require, minus 60, minus 70. It's because of the lipid capsule that they have produced, you know. If a cold chain is busted for any vaccine, even the 2 to 8 degrees centigrade is not maintained, the vaccine is not going to become harmful. It's going to become useless. Now, I'm very interested in cold chain. I spent a lot of my time when I was Minister of Health looking at cold chain in the country. Many states I've done studies on. And I can tell you that Ministry of Health is very fussy about their cold chain, and they spend a lot of energy and time training nurses to maintain the cold chain. So I trust the Ministry of Health vaccine cold chain for this, okay? Which is, again, the reason for, district for vaccines that don't require such a severe cold chain. How safe are these, these mRNA vaccines? Is there enough data? What are the long-term side effects? Can they cause cancer? Are they sort of a gene therapy that's going to alter our genes permanently? Put in, some women say, put in a microchip into us. I wonder how that's going to happen. It's such a tiny piece of genetic material. And does it contain mercury? Let me answer all these questions. First of all, I want to answer one that wasn't asked, but some Christians have asked me, does it contain fetal cells? Many vaccines and drugs have been developed using a fetal cell line which came from two electively, legally aborted fetus in the 1970s or 80s. And these cell lines have been cultivated over decades, available in many, many countries, and they're used in vaccine development. We don't have the fetal cell lines in the vaccine, but they are used to test vaccines, make sure they work in a human cell line, okay? And I would say that almost everybody listening in would have used this technology in drugs or other vaccines. So, even the Vatican has come up with a clear statement permitting Catholics to use this. So don't worry about this one, okay? Let's worry about this one that people are thinking about, Pfizer and Moderna, the mRNA vaccines, So again, it's the messenger mRNA, the temporary message, put in a lipid capsule, introduced into our cells with the injection. It doesn't enter our cell nucleus, doesn't combine with our DNA. It gives a transient message. The cell responds using the ribonucleus, and it produces a lot of antibodies and stimulates other parts of our immune mechanism. Safe as far as we can see, okay? What about the AstraZeneca, Johnson Johnson, Sputnik, CanSino, which use a viral vector? A little bit of the DNA of the virus is put inside a viral vector. This enters our cell. This one enters our cell nucleus but does not combine with DNA. Again, it produces messenger RNA, which then stimulates our cells to produce. Okay. At the present moment, there are no safety signals for any of these, as I talked about earlier. So I cannot see any effect. Can it cause cancer? I cannot answer that question. I don't have the data. What causes cancer? Sometimes we don't know, isn't it? Probably some of the things that we are breathing in from the cars that are spewing out stuff to us, can. Sometimes like for asbestos roofs that we did not know for many years. So I cannot answer that one cancer question that somebody asked here, okay? But is there enough data for short-term safety profile? Yes. Will it alter our genes? No, no evidence at all in altering our genes. Okay. What about that heavy metal thing, which has been a problem with many other vaccine and concerns of people? I went and checked each vaccine, especially for you. Pfizer does not contain these products. AstraZeneca does not. Sinovac contains aluminium because it's the old-fashioned vaccines. All the old-fashioned kill vaccines used aluminium. This aluminium is added as an adjunct. It makes the immune response better. Okay. I don't know about CanSino, and Sputnik doesn't contain any of these, okay? So these are the ones that I can tell you. Now, in case you're worried about Sinovac having the aluminium inside the vaccine, recognize that many of our killed vaccines have them, the vaccines we've been using, and 1 liter of infant formula will have the same amount of aluminium in the vaccine dose you're getting. So if you keep drinking milk every day, after 1 month, you probably get the same amount of aluminium, and many other foods that we take also have aluminium. So the dose is actually very tiny. You can get it from your natural food, and probably you have a lot more of it already. So I wouldn't think of it as harmful. Okay. What about this gentleman, Gert van der Bosch, who recently came out with a large video and a statement, staking his reputation that, we are only focusing on the short-term results. And the main thing he's saying is that, we may turn a harmless virus into an uncontrolled monster because of immune escape. Now, what are the opinions about this? So he must understand his basic premise is that he says the current vaccines will allow COVID-19 to mutate into a dangerous vaccine. That means immune escape, something becoming very infectious and severity. But you can see immune escape already happening. Immune escape will happen with a virus because it's mutating, and you can see three dangerous immune escapes in some way, which is that UK, South African, and the Brazilian one. Okay, so far the data supports the vaccine works. Even the data I showed you earlier, coming from US, from Spain, other countries, showing that it stops transmission, and also some data saying it works against mutation. Okay. And again, the data suggests that the vaccine works at many different areas of life, not just antibodies, but cellular immunity. The vast majority of scientists do not agree with him. They believe that if we vaccinate enough of our population, we actually will stop mutations from happening and we won't allow immune escape to continue. So I think Greta Wonder Bosch, I think I keep an open mind. I listen to him, but right now this whole sum of data does not support his opinion. Okay. Is there any valid and clear reason why we're using the mRNA vaccine and strongly promoted, compared to other vaccines like the Sinovac live attenuated, killed attenuated vaccine, which has almost no adverse side effects? First of all, I think this is a fake statement. Almost no adverse side effects from the other vaccines. No, it's not true. All vaccines got side effects. Sinovac also got side effects. We just haven't seen all the public side effects just yet. And for someone who's involved in children and giving vaccines, we have seen side effects over the years. So all vaccines have side effects. Why are we promoting the mRNA so strongly? I don't think we're promoting them. We're looking for a tool to fight this pandemic. And in the past, the mRNA vaccines were very difficult to make stable. People want to use them for a long time, just couldn't find stability. And a lot of research has gone to it. And currently that has happened. The stability has turned up. And so they are high potency, they're capable for rapid development, they are low cost manufacture, and people have looking at them and look at them, they look safe as far as we can see right now. So I don't think people are pushing mRNA vaccines. I want to say, however, they are the vaccine that's probably easy to re-engineer. If we have a mutation, if we need a booster dose, this is the vaccine that's going to come out very fast compared to the other old-fashioned vaccines, which take a lot more energy and time and manufacturing to produce. So I don't think anyone is pushing mRNA vaccines. They just come to the point in our society, in our development, where we are possible to use them. I've answered this question about effectiveness and side effect. Which of the vaccines safer? Right now, I think I've also answered that from the available data. I cannot answer for the Chinese and Russian vaccine. I've answered for the other vaccine. And do we anticipate side effects in 5 to 10 years? No. I think if you're going to see side effects, you're going to see them right now. Okay. If a certain vaccines are not as effective against certain mutated variants, isn't it wasted? I've already answered this. I don't think it's wasted. We can actually contain our mutations right now. And are the 2-dose vaccines needed every year or just once a lifetime? No one can answer this question. The current thinking is probably we will need one more booster to handle some of the mutants maybe, but we don't know about whether coronavirus is going to end up then just spreading like influenza, and we're going to need a yearly dose to manage it. There are many different models and scenarios that have been developed by scientists. Some say it just die out and become a weak common cold virus, killing a few people every year, something like influenza, but others believe that it may become more sinister. We don't really know yet. Okay. Can I opt out from taking the vaccine? Let the herd immunity take place first, delay my vaccine till later. If everybody did this, we're koyak lah, I mean, there's no herd immunity going to happen. I think you have to think both personally as well as for the community. I always take these two things equally in my mind. I have my personal problems with taking the vaccine because of my severe allergies, but I think of the community that every person has to pitch in right now. So I believe that we should take it. If you wait and more people wait, we're never going to get there. Already right now, the vast majority are waiting. 70% are waiting, so that's not good. Okay. And of course, you might get COVID while you're waiting. I wouldn't want that to happen to you if you're an older person or you get long COVID. After the doses can I travel, I think we have to wait for what's happening in the whole world and advisories for people. But it looks like this is going to come if we can ramp up our vaccination quickly. Okay. Do we need to test the blood before taking the vaccine? No, you do not need to. Can I choose the type of vaccine if I go to a private hospital? Maybe by December, if we vaccinate a large volume of Malaysians, then they will probably open for private sector to be able to give vaccines. Right now, no. But as I said, I hope that the Ministry of Health will consider giving some less allergic vaccines to people who are allergic once we find the data out. I'm worried about the after effects. Yes, I think many of us are, but the after effects are small. The common ones, don't really bother you. The rare ones are uncommon. Okay, people infected with COVID-19 is antigen positive, still need the vaccine. So we are saying that people who have had COVID-19, should they get the vaccination? Yes, you do need to get the vaccination if you have had COVID-19 previously, because the immunity will be even stronger with the vaccination. You probably just need one dose. Again, guidance for this will appear in the next couple of months. How can I be more prepared prior to receiving the vaccine? A bit difficult to answer this. Be well rested. Trust God more. I didn't put down pray here, but I would say, spend time listening to God and trust God when you go for your vaccination. Go with company if you can. If husband and wife or family can get vaccinated together, that'd be good. Or another church member or friend with you is good. Stay hydrated. Don't pre-medicate. Some people say, oh, going to be pain, so I take some aspirin or other things. Don't do that. It may blunt your side effects. People may not see them so well. You may take it after the vaccination if you have side effects. Okay. Some people also suggest don't have strenuous exercise 2 hours before and after the vaccination, and avoid hot showers 2 hours before and after the vaccination, because this will exacerbate side effects. I don't know the data for this, but this is said by very good people who work with vaccine development. So I listen to it, but I must say it's an opinion. Of course, finally, tell your doctor if you have any allergic risks or other risks that you're worried about. Tell them about the diseases you have so that they can listen to you. Okay. Now, let's answer some personal questions that have been asked. Those were a lot of general questions that apply to many of us. Okay. What will possibly happen if I do not want to take the jab? Well, after a while, you may become a smaller and smaller community. And maybe you might come to the point as you go to supermarket and people say, ada vaccines passport ka? Tak ada, tak boleh masuk supermarket. It's not just traveling overseas. People may push for a vaccine passport to even go to our local coffee shop. I do not know. But right now, nothing can happen if you don't take the jab. But I hope you don't get COVID. All right? I pray to God that you don't get COVID. Don't forget, probably 1 million persons in Malaysia have had COVID. Okay. Without a full medical checkup, how to determine if safe the vaccine? I do not think it's possible for 25 million people in Malaysia to go for a medical checkup before the vaccine. So, it's your previous health issues that you knew about that was sufficient. Otherwise, consult your local doctor if you're really very worried. In what condition of health is it not suitable to take the COVID vaccine? Well, different brands of vaccine have different restrictions on those who can take it. I don't believe anything will happen to this one here, but we're having a chat with Pastor Isaac before I came into the general room, and he was asking, I got Sinovac and I cannot go to the US because they say, they don't accept Sinovac vaccine. So that kind of restrictions may happen. So what may happen is he may have to do an antibody test to show the US government, I have responded to the Sinovac vaccine. I don't know whether that sort of thing will happen. So, this is something that we'll have to hammer out between countries. Okay. But answering this question, what condition of health is not suitable to take the COVID vaccine? I've agonized over this, and I'm going to give you your opinion. It's just an opinion for me, and you're going to recognize it's not database. Now, if I have an 80-year-old father or mother, I'm very worried they're going to die from COVID. And I'm going to make sure they get vaccinated. But let's say I have an 80-year-old father or mother who is lying in bed, who is in very bad health. I have to spoon feed them. They're wearing Pampers. They are demented. They can't really, talk to us. We're waiting for the day the Lord is going to take them. They're going to die anytime. So I'm saying, I'm not sure whether we should vaccinate them or not. If they get COVID, of course, they die very quickly. These are the people who die very quickly from COVID. But, if they get the vaccine, they might get a fever and some side effects. Will that take them over and kill them faster? I don't know the answer to this. Some people are thinking about this. This is an opinion. You must take this opinion without data. Okay. So if they are well and moving around, vaccinate them. If they are in bed, lying there and very, very unwell, meaning that, you are waiting for the time for the law to take them, then you have to think very hard about that one. Maybe the best thing is to vaccinate everybody in the family, so we create a cocoon around them, so, it's harder for COVID to reach them. What about MOH guidelines about who cannot be vaccinated? MOH says immune compromised people, people with autoimmune disease, pregnant breastfeeding, allergic to the ingredient of the vaccine, severe allergic reaction to first dose, under 18. Now let me talk about this. All this has changed. This was earlier MOH guidance. Under 18, waiting for data right now, so still not yet. Severe allergic reaction, I've discussed with you what's happening. And MOH will offer you support. The very severe one in hospital, the rest monitor in the clinic level. Okay. Someone who's allergic to ingredients, same issue as well. If you're allergic to the first dose, severe allergic to the first dose of the vaccine, they are not going to vaccinate you for a second dose. Okay, that one still applies. Pregnant and breastfeeding women, let me say in a moment, autoimmune disease, immune compromised, they've come up with statements. They're going to immunize some of these individuals. Okay, so let's talk about breastfeeding and pregnant mothers first. For lactating mothers, they've come out now with a statement say can. So breastfeeding mothers can. Some may choose to stop breastfeeding for a couple of days after the vaccine, but that's a personal choice. Okay. What about pregnant mothers? They recently issued a statement saying ask your doctor, but they've come out even stronger and said they are recommending. There are good guidelines from Malaysia. Overseas, there are guidelines as well, but the Malaysian ONG guideline says, if you are a vulnerable mother, you're pregnant, and you're worried that you're going to get COVID because of your job situation, go ahead, get vaccinated. I say there are these three options which have been offered internationally to individuals. Okay, one, if you are high risk from COVID because of your job or because you're overweight or your hypertension or diabetes or things like that in your pregnancy, they suggest get vaccinated. The second group of people, you don't not high risk. You think that you can protect yourself against COVID by many good SOPs. Then you can wait till you deliver, to get the vaccine, right? But it means that you must be careful about the SOPs. Some people in this category may wait until the second or third trimester. That means don't get the vaccine in the first 12 weeks of pregnancy. Wait until you're older in pregnancy to reduce any risk to the fetus. Okay. And finally, some people say, wait for a traditional vaccine. That means something like the Sinovac vaccine and use that instead. These are the thinking that people internationally have been putting together. And I leave that with you as a useful way to think. Most of the doctors who are pregnant have gone ahead with their vaccination because they're high risk for COVID. And they very well know that people who are pregnant are high risk of dying from COVID, high risk of ending up in the ICU, and also their baby is more likely to be born premature. For that reason, I think it's protective rather than harmful. Okay. Is it safe for parents over 80 to get vaccinated? Yes, this is a target group that we want. But remember what I said earlier about the concerns. Okay. I'll come back to the immune compromise in a moment. I missed that. I was told that even read news that China vaccines are only suitable for Asians. Is this true? Will the vaccine bring side effect after seeing many cases of death injecting, whether from the West or from China? So I think if I answer the issue about deaths, I think the deaths have to be worked out whether it's really due to the vaccine or the person is old and is likely to get that severe illness in the next couple of weeks. Okay. What about Asians? No, it's just that the vaccine is not licensed yet in the industrialized countries, in the Western countries. This is because China hasn't published their data. We want to recommend that these companies publish their data in journals. So then people of the West see the data, trust it, and will buy it. Okay, that's all there is to it. This one I think I've answered. Will the vaccine prevent us from getting COVID-19? Okay, I'm 20 years old. I suffer from viral encephalitis. Can I take the vaccine? Yes, you can. I think there's no contraindication that I can see at all. Again, I think for many of these personal questions, if you have your own, doctor that you regularly go to, ask them, please, because I'm just hearing a small bit of your story. Secondly, again, when you come for your vaccination, ask the doctors at that site. They will give you the final reassurance. Okay. Why is that high blood pressure for 2-3 days after the vaccination? Is it normal for a person without high blood pressure history? I'm not seeing this. I'm not hearing this. Could you please share some data with me where you got this information? It's not coming through from the safety signals that I've read so far from many countries. So not true as far as I'm aware. Of course, immediately after the vaccine, your blood pressure can go up because you got frightened. That can happen, but that's not going to last more than a couple of minutes. It'll come back down. Even seeing a doctor, your blood pressure actually goes up. It's called white coat hypertension, seeing a doctor. Okay. I'm allergic to, these are all individual questions. Allergic to a drug like this, again, I said a single drug allergy, I will consider you low risk. Multiple drug allergies, you should tell them and they will evaluate your risk. I'm over 65 or 92 years old. Either of these are high-risk people, please get vaccinated. Asthma, hypertension, high cholesterol, yes, get vaccinated. Unless your asthma is very severe, in which case you should tell them about it so they take some care when they're vaccinating you about allergic. These are high-risk people. Diabetic, again, all high-risk individuals. So anybody with an illness generally is higher risk of dying from COVID. The vaccination is a good idea to take. I have a history of hemangioma on my right leg and knee pains. I don't see any particular risk that you have for the vaccination. Please go ahead. You have GERD, which is a reflux. You have thyroid problems and osteoporosis. Again, do not see any risk here for you for the vaccination. Please go ahead. Okay. Allergic to erythromycin applies to, again, to single drug allergy. Should tell the people when you go to vaccinate that you have this risk. They'll be concerned. Same with eczema and cyanosis problem, no risk. So all these people should get vaccinated. Okay. My 12-year-old daughter has a medical condition where breathing difficulties. Might think whether she's got asthma or not. Should she get vaccinated? Right now, her 12-year-old daughter will not be vaccinated because she's not in the category. I cannot answer long-term for children because I have to see what the studies say about the risk in children. I have allergies to penicillin antibiotics. I'm a diabetic. I've done a bypass, kidney stage 3. Yes, please get vaccinated. You're the kind of person who might get a severe COVID or die from it. Tell them about your allergic risk and then they will evaluate where you'll get vaccinated. Allergic to bee stings, again, considered on the lower end of the allergic spectrum, can get vaccinated. Same with the aspirin allergy. And the one with history of one lung and history of myasthenia gravis, this is a paralyzing condition which you recover from. Definitely you are higher risk with one lung. If you get COVID, very hard to support you if the lung is damaged. So vaccination will help you. Okay. If I develop fever after vaccination, what should I do? Take paracetamol? Yep. Why not? It doesn't harm. If you can handle the fever, handle it. If you can't, take some paracetamol or aspirin if you have some pain. I have dementia. Again, I think people who are older age, many of us are dementia. Sometimes I think dementia is setting in for me already, past 60, maybe it's just the volume of requests and, people I meet, can't remember everything anymore. So definitely those of us who are struggling with this, no contraindication. As I said, you're not lying in bed, you're moving around, go ahead. Okay. 20 years ago, I suffered from encephalitis, no risk. Epilepsy, no risk. What about cancer survivors? You've gone through the therapy, you're finished, please go ahead and get the vaccine. You're not on any immune suppression. Okay. I have psoriasis, autoimmune disease. Okay. I'm not going to answer this one, I've answered that already. What about autoimmune disease? And some of our kind doctors have come up with a very, very clear statement for every kind of autoimmune condition. They call it hematological disorders, but they consider all your cancers, your blood conditions, and so on. Ministry of Health has taken that and put it into infographic. So these are independent people from the Ministry of Health come up with a statement. So you can see that people with leukemia can get, people with transplant and stem cells can get, people with thalassemia can get, people post-transplant, post-kidney spleen or kidney transplant can get. People with hemophilia can get. People on anticoagulations can get. So basically, immune-compromised people, some of them may not get the vaccine just yet. Okay, why is that? They may not respond actually. So if you're undergoing chemotherapy right now, you're going under radiation therapy right now, I would say hold on. One, because you may not respond very well to vaccine. Two, you're undergoing a lot of side effects from your other things. And Ministry of Health will say, hang on first, come back a little bit later. But those who have recovered, they will go ahead and give them. If you have an immune deficiency condition, they said go ahead and get vaccinated, but may not respond so well. Okay. So you can say here, the actual statement they said, patient undergoing active therapy such as chemotherapy advised to wait for the neutrophil count to recover before vaccination. They don't even say wait for chemotherapy to stop. They said wait for the side effects to recover and then go back in. Rare bleeding disorders can be vaccinated, and people on warfarin, the anticoagulants and people on antiplatelet therapy like me, I'm on antiplatelet therapy, should be managed individually. What they basically mean is you can get vaccinated, but you may bleed at the site of the vaccination. So you need to press well so you don't get a clot there. So increasingly, everybody is supporting vaccination in this group of people. I have urticaria due to food. Again, this is mild allergy. Go and get the vaccination, but please tell people about it. Okay. Now, this is a question which, probably Pastor Isaac was probably going to answer, but I thought I'll answer just as well, Pastor Isaac. How do you, as a Christian doctor, view the vaccine? If you take vaccine, will it act against our Christian belief? Let me answer for all drugs, for all therapies, for all treatments. I do not believe Panadol can work without God empowering it. No therapy works without God's innate power working in it. Okay? No food can nourish us without God's power working in it. So God gives us a lot of gifts and abilities. I believe that much of the illness in the world has diminished because God's inspired us to produce drugs and vaccines. I've seen the enormous benefit of vaccine for children. Must remember that I'm a bit of an oldish fella. I came through the period where vaccines were not very much used. I saw people die from diphtheria, from tetanus, things that today we don't see. Children die from them. I'm so delighted that we don't see it anymore. So I would be delighted to stop seeing people die from COVID or getting long COVID. So as a Christian doctor, I view vaccines as something that are beneficial to us. It's not against my belief system at all. It supports my belief system from God. I want to stop now and take any questions. And I want to say this is the big picture. We are enormously affected. Education, school, the number of people lost their jobs. A lot of people in the lower socioeconomic group who are struggling day to day. I'm here of people who are struggling and some want to end their life because they can't cope with the fact they can't feed their family. That's huge, huh? And a huge number of young people have lost their jobs. And then some people die because they couldn't get care properly. The cancer therapy wasn't up to the mark, or they're scared to go to hospital and they died at home. Then there's long COVID. These are the big things. Small things that are going to bug you is a death due to COVID. Death due to COVID is also inside this group. The small things that are going to bug you is the severe side effects of the vaccine itself. And they are there. I cannot deny that some of them occur. Right now, the anaphylaxis has not killed anybody, but the thrombosis and all are side effects that we should consider looking at. Okay. Oh, that was long, huh? And back to you, everyone, Isaac and the other team.
Thank you.
Let's take some questions.
So many of the questions that have been submitted have already been answered in the general questions, but there could be a few more. And right now, the staff that are taking the questions will unmute and will read out the questions.
Okay, so there are many questions that are asking about allergies regarding taking medicine, then after that take vaccination. So the first question we're going to ask is, Dr. Amar, there's a person asked, I'm allergic to Constant and Ibuprofen that cause swelling in the eyes. Can I be vaccinated?
So you see, this question is slightly different. He's developed some swelling. I think swelling in the face and neck is of concern to us. It might suggest that you might get the same kind of swelling with this. I think you should tell your doctor about this. These are the kind of people I would prefer vaccinating in hospital. You're not very high risk. I would consider you moderate risk. If you have more drug allergies with other drugs, then you become higher on that risk. But the fact that you develop swelling to it bothers me a little bit. I would say I would like to, what we in medical terms, we have something called triage. We divide people into low risk and high risk. You're actually on a moderate risk and coming towards a high risk of swelling. Please tell the people who are going to vaccinate you, and preferably you should vaccinate in hospital. That's what I would say to you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Amar.
Most likely nothing is going to happen. Huh? The vast majority, you must remember that 600 million people have got vaccinated. 20% of them would have some allergy, some of them severe. Most of them had nothing happen to them. It's the minority, in overseas 2 per 100,000, in our Asian region, 10 per 100,000 who actually got some severe reaction. It's the minority who got it. But still, we want to be cautious and protect people. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Amar. So the second question is, I'm going to put in the Zoom chat. Hi, Dr. Amar. My dad is 73-year-old and his allergy to medications such as aspirin, Voltaren, Postan, Cinelex. I would like to ask with his allergies, is it safe for him to take the vaccine?
Okay, so he is 73. He probably has got a lot of illnesses. That's why he's taking some of these medications. So probably heart disease and other problems. So he's higher risk of getting damaged from COVID and dying from COVID. The fact that he's got multiple drug allergies put him in a moderate category. It depends what kind of allergies he's got. If you've got a skin rash and itch, things like that, he will still stay in a moderate category. MOH guidance for this is consult your doctor. Having said that, if you're going to consult your local GP, he also must say, I'm not sure what to do, I think because we're all learning on this. That's why I offer that guidance to you, those three categories. So he's right now in the moderate category, somewhere that what I would like to see is more and more people in this category get a lower risk vaccine and are vaccinated in the hospital. Right now, he's not in the high category. Again, my best advice to you, talk to a physician if you can, that means a specialist. If you can, before you go, you definitely should get the vaccination. You must mention this to the vaccination center. Okay, and if they're uncomfortable with you, they will receive guidance from Ministry of Health. They're uncomfortable with you, they will move you to vaccinating in a hospital setting rather than a clinic setting. Okay. But I would not say don't vaccinate. Okay, I think that is a bigger risk. Carry on.
So the next question is, can 63-year-old woman who is taking seizure and high blood pressure medication get the vaccine?
Yes, you can. I would do that. The only safety signal is something that I did not share with you. Let me see if I can find it very quickly. If I can, I will. Yes, I can find it here and show it to you. Yeah, okay. Let me just share this screen that I've got right now with you. Share screen. And one moment. I've got to find my slides again. You want to show me my slides? Okay, yes, okay. Sorry about that. So you look at the South Korea one here. 7 people had fits. Sorry, 7 people had severe infection. 5 had fits after the vaccination. Okay, so obviously some people do develop a fit after the vaccination. So to this lady, that is the only concern. You are no higher risk than other individuals from the vaccination in terms of side effects. You should get vaccinated because you're 73 years old and you have some hypertension. So I would say make sure you're up to date with your fit medication. Tell the doctor about your fits. If it's a fit going to happen, it's going to happen very quickly after the vaccination. But very few people have reported this. It's largely been reported by the Korean group.
Okay, the next question is, can 35-year-old woman on iron supplement get the vaccine?
Yes, sure. There are no risks at all that I can see at all for you. You're the same as the general population. Please go ahead. Sounding like a medical consult clinic here, Pastor Isaac. Yes.
Okay, the next question is more also about allergy. Is this person is allergic to zeflorozine and cerosine and as well as shellac. I don't know how to pronounce the term.
Don't worry, it's fine. Yes. So they're worried about that. The first 2 are antibiotics. Shellac is something we use to pain things. So you've got multiple drug allergies. So I'll put you in a moderate category. You need to tell the vaccination site about that. So I know, but what I'm saying is fairly repetitive for each one of us. It doesn't sound like reassuring enough to you. But you must remember the people with the greatest experience right now are the people who are vaccinating. They've done thousands and thousands because the vaccination sites are very few right now. They are composed together, and they're the safest place to go because those people would have a lot more experience than you and I onto this. So you should tell them that you have multiple allergic risks, and then they will consider, as I suggested, the 2 options. If they feel uncomfortable with you, move you to a hospital vaccination site. They're comfortable, they will vaccinate you in the clinic. Recognize that they have resuscitation equipment in the clinic setting. In Ipoh, our vaccination site, the major one is the stadium. You know, there's a team on standby all the time to resuscitate people. They've got resuscitation equipment. They've drawn up an algorithm what to do if somebody has a severe allergic reaction. They watch you for 30 minutes. So they are not about to lose anybody. Nobody wants to lose. Have people develop allergic reaction? Yes, I've heard of colleagues developing, doctors who have allergic reaction. Nobody has died. Everybody has been treated immediately. So I believe the thing to do after your vaccination also is don't play with your handphone. You know, don't send message to your friend, I've been vaccinated, you know, stuff like that. I think it's you know, sit down quietly, listen to your body, watch for anything that's happening to you for the next 10, 15 minutes, you know. Use that time perhaps to meditate with God and listen. I think don't be busy at that time, don't run around. That is the time that you want to spend to be prepared. And come again, as I said, rested, you know, heart that's, you know, not anxious, and that's a better way to get a vaccination. I'm sure if we are really, really, very, very upset, our body also reacts differently when we're less upset. I do believe that sort of things. No scientific basis for it, but you know, personal you know, opinions about that. Yes, Samo?
Okay, the next question is, I'm under low blood pressure group and with heart palpitation. If I take Puriton, should I get vaccinated?
Yep. Okay. So let's look at that. You're on the low pressure blood group with heart palpitations. So that needs a bit more information, which I don't have from you. You know, Piriton, which is antihistamine, which is given to people when they have allergic reaction, actually can drop your blood pressure a little bit. You need to tell people that you have got this. Usually, when you have a severe anaphylaxis, that means you have a severe allergic reaction, they also give you adrenaline, which brings up your blood pressure. Okay, they probably give you the Piriton later. If you have a mild drug reaction or one they are not unhappy with but not anaphylaxis, they might give you the Piriton. So you got to tell them about this. Another good point is, you know, the moment you have an allergic reaction is nasty, the first step we will do is actually make you lie down and put your legs up to bring more blood supply to your brain. Okay, so you know, Piriton definitely is something that is recognized to bring your blood pressure down, but it also treats the anaphylaxis. So trust them. They will give you drugs. They probably will set an IV drip for you as well to try and give you more fluids to bring up your blood pressure at the same time.
Thank you, Dr. Amar. For the participants, if you have question, you can fill up in the Google form. Yeah. And the next question is, after getting vaccinated, can one still be a carrier of COVID-19?
I don't think we can be carriers. No one is a carrier of COVID-19. You have the infection and you clear it. Usually clears after a couple of days. So the virus can either infect you or you can be asymptomatic infection, and then you clear the virus. Your body fights it and clear it. I think the only people who might become carriers are immune compromised people. I haven't seen much data on this, I must tell you, just an opinion from me. So after vaccination, you cannot become a carrier. Can you be infected after vaccination? Yes. The risk right now appears to be about, you know, less than 10%, the risk. 80, 90% don't seem to get infected anymore. But again, this data is very preliminary, coming out from a number of countries where they monitored health professionals every week to see after vaccination whether they got infected. And they seem to think that the risk is very much lower compared to people who are not vaccinated. I believe that we will get a very clear picture in the next 2 months about this.
Okay, thank you. The next question is regarding, I think, a news that someone saw. He or she is asking regarding a case of a doctor in Florida who died after he was administered with Pfizer vaccine. What has his actual cause of his death? We read that his platelets went to zero.
Yep.
Yeah, but do we know what is the cause of his platelet to become zero?
Yep. So I don't think there's an answer for that one. I mentioned that safety signal to you when I talked about AstraZeneca, then I talked about Pfizer. Pfizer has a safety, Pfizer and Moderna have a safety signal regarding what is called ITP, immune thrombocytopenic purpura. That means your platelets drop due to immune mechanism. What is the normal immune mechanism? Usually it's a virus infection. It could be many other things that do that to you, and some sort of allergic reaction. Are we happening all the time? Yes. I've treated lots of children with ITP over my lifetime. You know, many would come in every year. Same with adults as well. So that's a baseline, a regular rate of ITP that's going to happen in the community. Did this gentleman develop the ITP because the drop in platelets because of the vaccine or because he was going to get it, that means he had something else that happened to him in the last couple of weeks. We are not sure. The data and articles I've read on this, they suggest that you should start appearing 2 weeks after, and I agree with that. For it to be an immune mechanism, you get the vaccine, your antibodies start to develop after 1 to 2 weeks, then your immune mechanism kicks in, then your platelets should be damaged. So if you get this very quickly within 1 week or within 10 days after things, I would think it's happening naturally due to some other cause. But after 2 weeks, nobody can actually differentiate whether it's due to the vaccine or whether it's due to a natural cause. But people are saying there is a possibility. So it's a very rare, small possibility. If the platelets drop very low, below 10,000, then you might bleed. And of course, the place we are worried about bleeding is in the brain. Usually, your platelets are more than 20,000, especially more than 50,000. You won't bleed spontaneously, and you'll probably be all right. Are people being tested for this? No, I think you can't test the whole population. So you got to keep a sharp eye out. If you see any bruising, any easy bleeding, then I think you should consult your doctor immediately. You shouldn't wait if you see that happening. What will happen is you brush your teeth and you may bleed, or if you knock yourself against furniture, a small knock and you get a bruise. I think those are things that you should consider as signals that this might be happening to you. But don't forget, it's happening to some Malaysian today. Some Malaysian today, or a few Malaysians today, are getting ITP without the vaccination.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Amar. So according to the Google form, there's only one question left. So if a person does not know which drug he or she is allergic to, is there any test to find out before vaccination?
There are something called skin tests that, some individuals with expertise can do for you, especially dermatologists, the skin specialists can do. What they do is they prick the back of your skin with multiple different allergic things. Usually they look more at allergies to, things that you eat or stuff like that. Drugs itself, people don't like to challenge you with them. So it's not easy to find out if you're allergic to a drug. The only way is to do it over many weeks or months or years. Keep a diary. Whenever you have allergy, you write back down all the things that you ate or took in the last week, and then after a while you develop a pattern. Like I know I'm allergic to one flower, I'm allergic to one's orange squash. Because of the years I monitored those things. Otherwise, it's not possible to know that. If you've been allergic once and you don't know which drug, you are in a very low risk category as well. You should tell the vaccination site, and they probably just keep an eye on you, but they won't be particularly worried.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Amar. I pass this time to Pastor Isaac.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Amar, for your patience